Et le moment que le public de l'ASM attendait aujourd'hui. La dernière entrée en jeu sous le maillot jaune et bleu de Jamie Cudmore.
Hello, everyone. Happy Halloween, and welcome to another episode of the Rouge Rugby podcast. My name is Dan Murphy, and with me always is Derek Brissett and Stu Hardy. Now, gentlemen, we have among us a legend in Rugby Canada, and fitting with the holiday, probably one of the scariest guys to ever wear the red and white. We have with us head coach of the Pacific Pride Academy, Jamie Cudmore. Jamie, thanks for coming on the show, man. Really appreciate you taking the time and sitting down and talking rugby.
No problem, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
So we're gonna get you started here, and we know that in some form, the academy's kind of been running during the COVID shutdown, but like, what was all that like? How did you keep you and your players busy during this COVID shutdown?
Well, obviously, it was very difficult, for a lot of people during this, last 6-7 months. Basically, after coming back from the sevens this past March, we were seeing how things are developing around the world. Seeing how our women's team had recently been in France. Also, there was obviously a lot of people coming into Vancouver, a lot of risk of infection there. So coming out of the sevens weekend, we decided to shut down our program. Just to kind of minimize the risk and wait a week or two and see kind of how things developed. And then it just got worse and worse and worse, as we all know. So unfortunately for us, we had to shut it down. In the grand scheme of things, it's not really that important. We're playing rugby at the end of the day. It's not like it was a hospital would have to shut down or something of that magnitude. But clearly disappointing for the players, for myself and everybody involved in the staff, because we had a really, really good year going. We had quite a few guys graduate to MLR, and they would have continued on around about that time. But everything kind of got shut down, and the world's kind of ground to a halt. And now it's only just progressively getting more and more back to our new normal here over the last month.
Yeah, I know when everything kind of shut down in March. I work for the public school board here in Peterborough, Ontario, and we went away for March break thinking that it might be an extra week of March break, and then we just never ended up coming back. And we started up back up again in September, and it's not the same. It's been a really surreal couple of months. So I can imagine what it's been like to try and work with these young men to kind of continue their careers.
Yeah, it was definitely difficult, but we managed to get the boys back in the gym in June. And then June, July was very much just programming, strength and conditioning based, speed out on the field, obviously socially distanced. We weren't allowed to be in bigger groups. Then we got everybody back together on the 1st of September. And with our COVID protocols, we broke the guys into small groups of 12. And we basically just did the same thing throughout 3 groups every training day. Because it was the best way for us to get in consistent training, to build these guys up, to them to be able to handle more load, and really concentrate on kind of the soft skills that I think a lot of guys need work on. Everybody needs work on those soft skills, but I think us in Canada, as a lot of guys come to rugby a bit later, they definitely need a little bit of extra work in those domains. So that's really what we've done for the month of September is, it's been catch pass, it's been heads up rugby, playing what's on, really trying to develop our attacking awareness and the skills that are needed to exploit those situations.
Yeah, and Jamie, you kind of touched on it a little bit in your answer there, that there's a lot of Canadian rugby players generally kind of come to the sport later. So it has been a question that we've been asking all of our guests that have come on the podcast so far. Just how did you get started in rugby, and how did your sort of journey through rugby progress?
Well, my rugby journey started a bit later than most. Growing up in Squamish, there was no organized rugby here on the West Coast. There was in Vancouver, but I didn't know anything about it. My father immigrated to Canada from England in the '70s, and he played rugby at a pretty good level in university and kind of in his region. And he always wanted myself and my brothers to play rugby, but there wasn't really much opportunity up in Squamish back in those days. But 16 years old, 17, there was an opportunity through my boss in Squamish, who was the president of the local club. And I kind of went out for a few trainings and started playing on the weekends. And, the camaraderie, the whole kind of team atmosphere, I loved it. So, I got the bug and I just stuck with it.
So the guests we've had on the show so far are currently playing in MLR. And
Yep.
Well, you've never, unfortunately, had the opportunity to play in a professional club in Canada or North America. You obviously have a very decorated career playing in Wales and more notably France, and now moving into coaching. What would you say is one of your favorite memories or achievements over your playing career?
I think the first one would have to be getting my first cap with Canada. Being able to replace Al Sharon down in Chicago many moons ago. I think it was 2002, where I got my first cap. That was a huge honor for myself, for my family as well, and all my friends and my club. The Capelanos and the Squamish Axemen. We're obviously very proud to have more guys represent Canada, more girls as well. But that was my first kind of major achievement. And then after that, playing professional rugby, because when I first started playing rugby, I had no idea that it was actually a possibility of playing professionally. I'd seen some of the old Five Nations games that my dad had on VHS, and kind of thought, oh yeah, that'd be pretty cool to kind of play in front of a crowd or something like that. But I had no idea that there was a possibility to go around the world and actually get paid to play. And so that was a big surprise for me to get an opportunity professionally. When I first went to Wales in '02, just after my first cap, and then leaving Canada after the '03 World Cup, and being in a professional environment in France where it was kind of sink or swim. I didn't know how to speak the language. I didn't really know where I was. You didn't have iPhones in your pocket to kind of GPS know where you are these days. And I didn't know how to phone home because I didn't know there was like a country code for Canada and all this. So I was pretty lost for the first few months. But building my skill set and my rugby experience over there in the professional domain was really, really, it was life changing. And then becoming immersed in the culture and understanding, the different kind of holy grails in French rugby, and understanding that the biggest thing in France is the bouclier Brennus. And the bouclier Brennus is basically a big piece of wood that looks like a shield. A bouclier is a shield. So that's kind of their Super Bowl, their Stanley Cup, whatever it may be for rugby. And being with Clermont, where I played for 11 seasons. We had been in 3 finals previously, in 2007, 2008, and 2009. Unfortunately, losing them all. And then in 2010, on the 100th year anniversary of the club, we won the Bouclier, and that was life-changing experience. It was unbelievable. The stories I could tell you guys here after that week. I don't think we have enough time on the podcast to go through it all, but it was literally like a volcano erupted in Clermont, because Clermont's a volcanic region, And it was unbelievable. It was unbelievable. Seriously, like we came into town, they couldn't even let us off the train in town because there was too many people like around the train station. They had to let us out like 3 kilometers early, get us on a bus, a clandestine bus, which actually already had 1,000 people around the train station there, and then into the town, into the open top bus. And basically, we went into town at a walking pace with like 15 cops around the bus holding a rope so that nobody could like climb up onto the bus and try to touch the bouclier. And we finally got into town, and turning into town into this massive square, the Place de Jaude, there was probably 110, 120,000 people in the center of the square. And everybody started jumping because there was this chant back in the day as "Qui ne saute pas n'est pas Auvergnat." So like if you're not jumping right now, you're not a real Auvergnat. So that's the name of the people from this region. So everybody started jumping, and they're basically polling through this whole place. And there was a seismic event recorded from all these people jumping. It was crazy. And there's so many great stories like that, through my time in France. But definitely the biggest memory and kind of honor that I had there, besides my first cap with Canada, and then being very fortunate to be involved in 4 World Cups after that, it would definitely be the bouclier in 2010.
Now you've mentioned the videotapes that your dad showed you about the 5 nations, and you said your dad is an immigrant from England. Now my question to you is, after watching Super Saturday yesterday, where does your allegiance lie? You spent a good part of your young adult life in France, and then you got an English father. I'm an Ireland fan, so I'm absolutely heartbroken. But how did you feel after yesterday?
Well, I think I definitely have a soft spot for the French. Obviously, I've got friends playing for France. I got friends coaching with France as well. Not Galtier, I tell you that much. But yeah, it's good. I always enjoy to see my friends do well. So it was unfortunate that Wales didn't do well, because John Davies is a good friend of mine, ex-teammate. Talked with a few of the other guys after the games. They were obviously disappointed or elated, depending on who I was talking to. But my allegiance, if I'm looking at those games Saturday, would definitely be with France. Yeah.
There you go. Now you're not the only famous, Cudmore from your family. For those who don't know, Jamie's younger brother is an actor. And the most important thing to us, especially Derek and I, because we're both big comic book nerds, is that he played Colossus in the X-Men film. So my question to you is, which superhero would you like to take a crack at, either on the film or if you had to go one-on-one with him on the rugby pitch? Who would Jamie Cudmore either play or play against?
Well, if any of those guys are going on the rugby pitch, they're going to be in a world of hurt because there's no CGI on the rugby pitch. But I don't know. To be honest, I saw your question there earlier, and I never really thought about that. It'd be good to have my brother with me in the second row. I think we'd do some pretty good damage. But in terms of if I was to ever take a role like that, in terms of a superhero, geez, I don't know. I always have a good laugh at Bane in Batman.
Okay.
I do like that.
Playing the supervillain, I like it.
Yeah.
I would watch it. Bane has also been known to create seismic events at sporting events, as based on the last Dark Knight Rises movie. So that, I think it could actually work. So moving on a little bit, there was some Pacific Pride related news that came out this week, most notably that Crosby Stewart and Liam Murray have both signed with the Houston SaberCats in Major League Rugby, and therefore becoming the third and fourth players from Pacific Pride to go to the Houston SaberCats. So we'll just start with Stewart and Murray here. How excited should Houston SaberCat fans be about these two players arriving? And what do you think that they can bring to the Houston franchise?
Well, I think they should be very excited. You've got two young players, brimming with enthusiasm. they've got still quite a bit to learn, but they're very proactive in what they do, and they work extremely hard. Crosby as a young number 9. He's kind of reached his ceiling here with us, being at the age he is and the experience he's already had. And Liam really as well. He's come through the under 20 program. He's done very well with us. He's had a few kicks at the can with the national team. So this is a perfect progression piece in their rugby future, where staying in the Premier League here or here with the Pride would really be not the best step for them. They need to get to a higher level and then just keep progressing. So having those two go off to Houston and with Paul Healy, their director of rugby, who I know quite well from my time in France. I know they'll be well coached. They're in a good structure there, and I hope that they have a lot of fun, and they represent the academy and definitely their countries as well as they can.
Yeah, and that was actually kind of going to lead it, or I guess you're kind of leading directly into what my follow-up question for that was going to be so Stewart and Murray are now the 3rd and 4th players from the Pacific Pride program to sign with Houston. Nick Hildenbrand signed earlier this off season, and then prior to the draft, they also traded for Robbie Povey, who has also played some Pacific Pride games as well. So Quentin Nawadi has gone off to Rugby United New York, and he's also a Pride player. But it seems that the Houston SaberCats are taking an especially large interest in the Pacific Pride program. So I was just wondering if you could maybe elaborate on what your relationship is between yourself and Paul Healy and the entire SaberCat organization there.
Well, I think we were to start off last year. We were invited down to Houston by World Rugby. Us as Rugby Canada, an entity went down. Myself, Kingsley Jones, who else was there? Aaron Carpenter as well. Some of the Arrows guys. So we went down on for us really a kind of I guess it was a connection week for a few days for us, where we got to meet all the MLR head coaches, a few owners, a few SNC guys. And it was really a kind of a professional development few days for those guys. And for us, it was a great for a few days to connect with all these guys, some that I knew, some that I didn't. And there's a few South American professional entities there as well. So that was really good in terms of just opening up doors and putting face to email or to phone numbers, and just getting some connection with these guys that are looking for players, really, because if you look around North America, we're the only World Rugby accredited academy in North America. So we're the best place to come if you want young talent, and that I know the level that they need to play at to be successful in the MLR. The directors of rugby and the coaches know that I know that. So it's a kind of it's a confidence thing. When you're looking for players, you normally bounce 3 or 4 guys off of 2 or 3 coaches that you know and respect, and it's a lot better now that all our guys are cycling through the program and off in MLR, because that gives them a step up for competition, and then for us it just validates how good the academy is doing, and why it's so important and integral for rugby in Canada in the future.
Yeah, and so obviously last year was the first year of the Pacific Pride Academy, since it kind of restarted since the early 2000s for the first time. So I was just kind of like, could you just give the listeners and everyone just kind of an overview of how the first season of the Pacific Pride went? And just like, obviously you're developing a lot of players that are already making that jump to Major League Rugby. So just like, what was your overall evaluation of the first season of Pacific Pride? I know it probably kind of ended a little bit weird with the world shutting down, but other than that, just what was your impressions of the first season and the players that you had on your squad?
So the first season was I think difficult for a lot of people and for a lot of reasons. It's never easy when you're starting a new program. I was in the process of moving back to Canada, so there was, on a personal level, there's a lot of things up in the air. But that's not really that important. I was very fortunate to have Matt Barr and Adam Kleberger do an amazing amount of work on recruitment and getting a very well balanced squad of guys that have come through the under 20 pathways or the under 18 pathways. So, proving that our pathway system is working. Then they had a few kind of, where they'd flip the coin with a few guys who were coming out of football, or maybe guys that were a little bit older, but, needed a little bit more development. So, showing up for me where, I really got there, mid-August, and we started on the 1st of September. So it was a get up and hurry up and get ready, because 4 days after we started, we had a kind of we were supposed to have a game before the Canada BC game before the World Cup. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough guys and we couldn't actually have a game, but we just kind of had a controlled scrimmage for the fans there. And then it went straight into to the BC Premier League the week later. So it was very, very rushed at the beginning, just because we had so much different stuff on the go, like the guys training, getting new systems, understanding a playbook, properly loading the guys so that we're not blowing them up after 2-3 weeks in, because a lot of these guys have never been in a professional environment. They went in from doing 2-day-week trainings with maybe a few extra weight sessions and a game on Saturday to 7 days a week. Where every training was, through GPS and, looking at their impacts and looking at their load and the high-speed meters. It's a professional environment. So, that was very difficult for a lot of guys, but they stuck to it and they continued to work hard, and seeing how many guys went on to MLR in the new year is kind of a proof that that we have the talent. They just need to be in a good environment and be pushed so that they can excel and move on to the next level.
So obviously, as we've just mentioned, that the world's shut down this year and maybe things haven't gone to plan, and now you've also mentioned how over the past few months with the new normal, things have been coming back together and limited contact and things like that. How has the program changed and adapted during the shutdown, and how did your players take it? And so how did the layoff have an effect on these athletes?
Yeah, so I think for the first few months, we were very much in the what if, are we going to start next week? Are we going to start next month? So there was a lot of questions, a lot of uncertainty. I think most of the guys dealt with that quite well. But the biggest thing was, these rolling shutdowns everywhere in different parts of the country. So they would get consistent training in, and then all of a sudden they'd have to stop for a week or stop for a few days, or they wouldn't be doing training at all. So, there's a lot of guys doing workouts in their backyard or on their back deck. And it's definitely not the same as being in an environment where you're pushing each other and you're actually running. You're not just kind of doing burpees in your backyard or whatever. Like it's very, very difficult. So, I think most of the boys did their best to, just keep things consistent and keep guys, training. But then coming into the summer, we managed to get our gyms open and get the guys in for consistent training and some speed, and then, a bit of handling and catch pass stuff. And that's really what we continued on with in September. Just working on those soft skills, working on that heads up rugby, as I said earlier. And just, we talked about, game awareness. It was great to see the Rugby Aotearoa get back going. So, we're doing a lot of review through those games. Guys were watching those games, from their position standpoint and how they can get better around that. So, we did our best. And now, since September, we've gone from that catch pass kind of building in to more high speed rugby, to where last 2 weeks ago we had an inter squad game. It was kind of 12 versus 13, and then last week we had a full inter squad game with 15 versus 15. Obviously within our cohort of 50, and it was outstanding. You know, some of the guys haven't played rugby since last March, so the boys were very excited, and we did two 30-minute halves, and we got some really good work out of the guys.
You need to tell the media team to stream those scrimmage games, because us Canadian fans are a little starved for some Canadian rugby. So put your connections together and make that happen, because we would love that.
We would have liked to have streamed it, but that would have taken one more person to actually run the whole, and that would have put us at 50. So there's too much risk in terms of COVID. But it was talked about.
You made an interesting point about how you guys were reviewing the Super Rugby games and stuff like that. When you're kind of taking your approach as a coach and looking towards what Canadian rugby is going to look like in the next World Cup cycles, do you prefer to look at, either the northern style of rugby or the southern hemisphere, or do you kind of just say, let's look at the best players in the world and build from there?
No, I prefer to look at what we have. Looking out at others is, you can have learnings from what other people are doing, but ultimately it has to make sense for our athletes. Canadians are very unique. We're not the same as our neighbors to the north, even though we are to the south. Even though we have similarities, there's differences in even across the country as to differences between provinces. So, it needs to be, looked at from a kind of a satellite view as to, okay, they're doing that over there, they're doing that over here, they're doing that in the Southern Hemisphere, and then adapt, the things that, might work for our guys, and then implement that in what we're going to do. I think traditionally Canadians are always very hard workers, and they don't mind a bit of rough stuff. We've got some very intelligent athletes. The majority of our guys are in university, so they learn very quickly and they can adapt very quickly as well. So if you look at those kind of that athletic, that intelligence, and that work ethic, well, you've got three things which are very, very important in creating a coherent, high performance team. So, yes, we look outside, but ultimately we look within, and we try to adapt things and make them, predominantly Canadian.
And you're going to be getting a little bit of coaching support in the near future. You have Phil Mack, who, it's an interesting dynamic as someone that you've played with personally with the national team, and he's coming in with coaching experience with the Seattle Seawolves, being the player coach, and then the previous season being an assistant coach. Can you speak to a little bit about what excites you about having Phil joining your coaching staff in the future?
Well, it's outstanding. It was very unfortunate that Adam Kleberger, he's moved on. He's still helping us with the talent ID and the
scouting,
the database and the scouting piece, but he's no longer coaching with us day to day. And it was kind of Phil was in the right place at the right time. He had just come back from Seattle, and unfortunately the MLR season last year had to stop. So he's available, and it's somebody who I know and trust, and that's a huge asset in any coaching staff. There needs to be total trust and understanding between all the coaches. Knowing Phil, we played together for years. It was a no-brainer. I said, "Listen, are you excited to be involved?" He said, "Yeah, I'd love to. It's in Victoria. I live here, and I'd love to give back and keep building with you." So he said, "Let's do it." So it was kind of a no-brainer for us, and very, very excited to have someone of his caliber and his youthful experience as well, to be a part of the coaching staff.
Yeah, and we'll close out on some of the Pacific Pride stuff here, but just who are some of the players that you're most excited about? Who are like the guys that you think that, whether it be like in a couple of years or say the next World Cup or two, like will be able to make like a real big impact for the Canadian national team?
Well, definitely all the guys that have gone on to MLR. We've got 9 guys that have gone off to MLR over the last year, and that's extremely exciting because those are the guys who we see as being the next Canadian internationals to help us, like you say, in 23 World Cup over in France. We've got up front with guys like Tyler Rowland, Chris Atkinson, Dewald Coetzee at hooker, Liam Murray, who you spoke about earlier, Nick Hildebrand. So we've got some good new front row guys coming that are going to push those established guys, and that's what we need. That's what we didn't have in the past. Having no academy system over the last 15 years is basically a huge part in why we've struggled to be more performant at the national team level. But now we've rectified that, and Rugby Canada understands how important this piece is, so that we can keep the hot seat under all the guys that are established, and that's just going to create a better competitive environment where guys are really pushing each other and trying to get better. In second row, we've got a few guys who are still developing here with the Pride, but there's definitely some bright lights. The Vicolani brothers out of Burnaby, doing very well. Siaki has signed with Toronto for next year, and his brother Taitusi. I wouldn't be a betting man if I wouldn't say he might be with an MLR team in the future as well. Out back, we've got a new South African number 9 that actually just arrived last night, Ross Broad, who came out of the Bulls under 21 setup. Unfortunately, down there he was barred with a lot of guys ahead of him in that group, but he's a quality player, and he'll be with us obviously after his quarantine. Who else we got there? We got Crosby Stewart. Obviously, we talked about Crosby earlier. Another exciting number 9 going to play MLR. And then at 10, Will Kelly, who's gone with Toronto. Josh Teal went down to San Diego. Quinn Nguati, who you spoke about earlier. We've got some outside backs, Brock Webster, Alex Russell, very, very exciting young players who are involved in the wider sevens group now. Deshaun Bowen, a winger who is very, very quick. Who else? There's even Isaac Olson, who's a youngster from the interior BC, who did very well in the under 20 camp, and he's a big, strong kid and very, very fast, and he's been fast tracked into the national ID camp here in November. So we got a lot of kids who are doing well, and I've probably forgot a few, but the squad as a whole, we definitely see a lot of promise in quite a few of these guys.
I was gonna say, I love the fact that you almost seem to have kind of just rattled off the entire roster almost at that point, which as a Canadian rugby fan makes me very excited that you seem to be excited about pretty much everybody that you have at the Pacific Pride program right now.
That Emerson Pryor from Trent University in the Peterborough Pagans is also a very, very interesting young man. He has tackled me many times, and it hurt a lot.
Yeah, well, Emerson actually he just joined us, so there's still some time to be put in for Emerson. His friend James O'Neill, the two of them are. I think I saw them out at Halloween. They were Wayne and Garth of Wayne's World, so they definitely got the best costume for the week.
Fantastic. Now we're going to be talking about some, instead of Pacific Pride players going to the Arrows, will be Arrows players heading out to British Columbia because of the high performance camp that is coming up. You'll be working with some of the Arrows staff at the high performance camp. How close have you worked with the Arrows coaching staff in the past year?
So we've been very close. We send they send their daily huddle training videos out to us every day. So we review and we collaborate on that. When we were down in Houston, obviously we were with the Hour staff, and we definitely we work together. We've got a professional team, MLR team in Canada, and they want predominantly Canadian players. So when they have a need, we try to find the best guys to suit their needs. And then going into November, having Aaron and Pete come out and coach with us is going to be great, because that collaboration is just going to continue. So I'm very excited to catch up with Carps again, and Pete and Winnie will be out here as well, helping with the organization of the whole camp, make sure everything runs smoothly as he knows how to do. And I'm definitely looking forward to it.
Now, you did mention that the Toronto Arrows are the only MLR team in Canada, as we all know, but you had an interview on the very similarly named La French Rugby podcast earlier this week, where you mentioned that you've had some conversations about groups that are interested in putting a MLR team in Vancouver. Is there any way that you could elaborate on that? We also know that George Killebrew did mention that there's 9 cities that are talking to MLR about potentially joining. Is there any chance that Vancouver is already one of those? Or basically what I'm kind of getting at is, how close is a second team to Vancouver coming, and what have you heard?
So I've been involved with 3 groups that have tried to start MLR franchise in Vancouver. One that was 3 years ago, and it didn't get off the ground due to various reasons. And then another group here this year that are in very advanced talks with the league and with other entities to have a stadium and kind of de-risk a stadium in terms of whether they put a hotel, restaurant, retail around it so that it can kind of run itself, which is obviously needed in any stadium of that size. You've got to have people coming through the gates all week. But that group is I'm helping them on the rugby side of things. They understand the professional sport side of things, so it's in pretty advanced talks, but obviously I can't say much more at the moment, as things like that. It's not my place to comment on when it's going to happen or what have you. But there's definitely talks on that being a team in Vancouver being a viable option. The MLR are very excited because obviously Vancouver is a great market. With you just go look at the hockey or the MLS. It's similar teams already in both rugby and soccer. So I could see things following the kind of the same vein as MLS did. About 20 years ago now.
Now, you know what? I'm going to put you in the hot spot, on a hot seat, Jamie, and you are part of this management team. What are you going to name this Vancouver team?
What am I going to name the Vancouver team? I'd call it the Action. I'd call it the Action. Homage to my first team up in Squamish, the Vancouver Action. But
I was going to say, it's just, you can just put it in Squamish. We just call it, have Squamish professional sports team in Squamish. Why not?
Well, hey, there's a hell of a lot of professional sportsmen up there, whether it be mountain biking, snowboarding, snowmobiling, and wet kite surfing or climbing. So I know we just add a rugby team to it.
There we go. And it sounds like there might be a new stadium there too, with kind of what you were saying. So you might as well just put it all up in Squamish.
Hey, if only land was cheap up there, boys.
Little details.
So we've mentioned the high performance camp coming quite soon, actually. What do you see your role being with the coaching staff? Because it very much will be a collaborative kind of camp. So where do you see yourself filling the role?
Well, my role is I'm the forwards coach of the national team, so it's pretty simple. Kingsley's head coach. Kingsley's head coach. Rob Howley is the attack coach. So that's a coaching team. With that is Phil Mack assisting Rob. Phil Pete Smith assisting Rob as well in the implementation of our attack processes, and then Aaron Carpenter is we'll be working together as well on it forwards and defense. So it's going to be great, as I said, to collaborate with those guys again, and we'll get learnings off each other as you always do. And just try to build a coherent, coaching staff for those 3 weeks. And at the end of the day, we got to get as much work as we can with these guys, so that hopefully come next spring we can get maybe a few camps or a few games going, and then really fire up into the summer international series. And obviously, fingers crossed if that all that stuff can go off.
And you know what? It's Rugby Canada has been pretty transparent about the financial issues that COVID's hit them with. They had to cancel their Halloween weekend and other test matches that they planned on having. It must be a really big relief to have the Arrows be a part of it. So, part of the bill can be covered in terms of having that additional coaching staff to help you guys with Rugby Canada running this camp.
Oh, definitely. It's it costs a lot of money to move guys around the country, get them housed in a hotel for 3 weeks, and food and all the rest of it. And without having test matches, it's very, very difficult to run things like that, as we don't have too much money coming in. But it's critical in our building for next summer, or really for the next 2 years, because we still need to qualify for the World Cup. So, with that kind of not long-term, but mid-term goal in the back of our minds, right now is the perfect time to over-resource in terms of players. And the more players that we get upskilled, we get, these guys playing at a better level here with the Pride in the BC Premier League, and then off into whether it be university setups down in the States or over in Europe. Fortunately, Canada's not doing anything right now. But MLR hopefully will go off in February, March, and the guys will be playing some meaningful rugby leading into the summer. So yeah, money is definitely very tight. So we're not going to be wasting anything. Make sure you finish all your food at lunchtime, boys, because things are tight. But it's always been the way in Canada. We get. We figure it out as best we can, and we don't have as much as say in England or France, but it's fine. We make do with what we have, and we make the best of it.
Well, Jamie, we really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to meet with us. This is when I first started playing rugby in high school, my rugby coach brought us all in to watch matches that you were playing in, and then to show us how to probably make a tackle, how to make that line break cleanly without having someone holding on to your legs as you're trying to make that dash. So to have you on the show, we really appreciate you taking the time.
Well, thank you very much, Derek, Daniel, Stuart. It's been a slice, and anytime I can chat and kind of speak to the greater Canadian rugby public, I'm very happy to do so.
I do have just one final question, and that is a lot of people have seen the clip of you at the 2015 Rugby World Cup going over to the French huddle, leaning in. Were you able to pick up any of those French tactics before you were quickly removed, or?
Oh yeah, I knew where the ball was going, and I was actually talking to Damien Shuley, who's he's a good friend of mine, and he was actually our neighbor in Claremont. He had bought a house just down the hill from us, and we'd hang out all the time. We'd be down at his place, be up at mine, and I tucked my head in and said, "Oh, Damien, qu'est-ce qu'on fait?" Just kind of, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And he gave me the call before he actually looked up, and he looks up. He's like, "Oh, you." He's like, F off, get out of here. And then I think Rabah grabbed me and tried to pull me away, and I just had a bit of a laugh inside. And unfortunately, we weren't contesting lineouts in that World Cup, but I knew it was going middle back, and they were going to drive it. So we just had to get in and get under him, and unfortunately, we couldn't stop that one drive.
Well, that's infamous scene. Anyone that's been a fan of Rugby Canada will always remember that scene, and they'll always remember the man known as Cuddles.
That's something that actually we do a lot in the past. When Nathan Hines and I played second row together, we'd regularly come slowly back to a line out, and you just walk through the huddle. If they're doing a huddle or whatever, you kind of get down and tie your shoes and sit right next to the huddle and look up, and then just kind of walk through everybody, and then just maybe step up on a few feet, whatever. Just make sure you're not missed, and kind of try to get the guys off their game, right?
You're teaching all these tactics to the Pacific Pride players so that they can use them when they get to the national team, right?
Of course, that's rugby. All those little things, that little pull, that little face wash at the bottom of rucks, our perfect ruck cleaning drill is you get in and under somebody, because you can't win a ruck if your shoulders are higher than the defender. So we have a shoulder height drill where you have to get in and under, and the best practice is in and under, flat on your back, face wash, off you go.
When I was playing a few games with Trent University, one of the forwards coach was infamous for his hook and his scrum. He put you up, and I was a prop, so he would just put his finger either in your nose or in your mouth, and he would just get you down, and you'd collapse the scrum, and we would get a penalty every time in practice. And all my teammates would be like yelling and screaming and be like, I can't help it. The guy fish hooked me. The coach did it.
Oh my! Well, you might have to figure out some way to defend yourself there.
Well, Jamie, we really appreciate this, man. Thank you very much.
No problem, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Well, gentlemen, that was just an amazing experience. I mean, I said it right before he left about, he was one of the first, rugby players that I started watching when I started playing rugby in high school. And I'm still my head's still kind of spinning about that. And the fact that he was just so cordial before we even started recording, the emails that he sent us. He even called me Mr. Murphy, which is just haunting coming from him. So my mind's just in a different place right now. I don't know how the rest of this show is going to go.
I mean, the rest of the show it'll be just as good. It'll be just as good. That's how you get people to stick around, man. You gotta be able to get past this, the professionalism, Dan.
Okay.
You gotta be able to.
I'm reeling it back in.
It's the professional era now, gone are the amateur days. We got to focus on everything going forward.
But yeah, that was a ton of fun. Like you said, man, he's a just Canadian legend. You can't, there is. I mean, I'm sure like a lot of people around our age that started kind of playing rugby around say 2007 to 2010 and stuff, watched Cudmore go through, I guess 3 of the 4 World Cups since I started playing rugby. And he's, he's just absolute Canadian legend. Of kind of, the sense of humor in talking about how to, sneaking up into the French little huddle before the line out there. A little bit of the dark arts of rugby kind of mixed in there too. I agree with him, Dan. You got to figure out how to defend yourself against that hooker.
You don't expect it. The guy's like 50 years old, and he's the opposition prop, and like you don't expect it, and then just whoop.
Well,
hits you with the fish hook.
Well, if he's doing it, why aren't you expecting it? You should know better by now. It's your own fault.
I should. It's on me.
Yeah.
Gang up on Dan night.
Yeah,
it's
you gotta
fine.
figure out something to do there. Obviously, it's just really fascinating hearing him talk about the Pacific Pride program and how needed it is. Because obviously, Canada was on the rise the last time there was the Pacific Pride program in place, and then it got taken away. And there's been a little bit of a fall down the rankings since then, and hopefully having it back will be the first step to rising back up the rankings once again. Yeah, and obviously I think it's important too to have a guy like Cudmore that was part of the original Pacific Pride program as well, kind of leading that, and showing that, showing those, like, the young Canadian players that it's like, like, hey, like, just, you can play professional rugby, when you get your start in Canada, and not even necessarily MLR, but go to France. And speaking of France, Will Percillier, guys. Looks, I
Yeah,
mean, he
we-
apparently he's magic.
good transition there, Derek. Yeah,
What
we've
I'm here
had
for.
we had a couple.
I'm even wearing, like, the Stade Francais pink too. It's technically the MLR breast cancer shirt, and it's just an MLR one because I cheer for everybody, so I just got to do the team logo.
Look at Derek sitting on the fence there.
Yeah, exactly.
Can't
I cheer
upset
for,
anyone,
cheer for
can
everybody. Cheer for everybody.
Yeah, it was a busy weekend in France for Canadian rugby players. Tyler Ardron and Matt Tierney enjoyed a win with Castellanos. So fantastic win for those guys. But Will Percillier, in his first top 14 appearance with Stade Francais, had a nice little try to celebrate his first cap in the top 14.
Yeah, and it was on his first touch, which is even better. Just comes onto the field. I know, like, we're talking about how great this try is. It's really all created by Sifu Navula. He that was an unreal little chip kick to himself that he kind of regathered, kind of popped it back up in the air over the defender's head too. That was just outstanding work from him. And then but the support line from Percillier is just brilliant. And even though that, I'm sure in other parts of the world the highlight is going to be from the winger there, but in my eyes it's definitely Percillier's support line. Like, I don't know, like, it's great. It's just great to see, man. It's, calls back to, Mario Lemieux scored on his first touch in the NHL, and I'm not making any comparisons, but I'm just gonna say,
you're gonna ruin me emotionally,
man. Maybe we got the Mario Lemieux of Canadian rugby blossoming here, scoring on his first touch in the Pro 14 or top 14, excuse me. He'd probably score on his first touch in the Pro 14 too. But yeah, easily. He'd probably score before his first touch in the Pro 14. It's just, he's just that good. He's just that good. So yeah, I don't know, man. It's we had talking with Jamie Cudmore about some of the great the Canadian up and coming Canadian players playing for the Pacific Pride, but man, I cannot wait to see Percillier in the national team jersey on a very regular basis.
Well, hopefully, I'd like to see Percillier play more in France, particularly in 2023 after Canada has qualified for the World Cup, and not just while the top 14's going on while the World Cup's going on.
Mm-hmm. What a try, though! What a try! Congrats!
It
Will.
was pretty nice.
Welcome to the show, bud. This will be fun.
Hopefully, we'll see him lots in the senior team. Now, guys, we're gonna bring it back to local, back to Ontario, and every now and then on this show, we kind of bring it around to hockey, and that is just
like I literally just did 10 seconds ago with that
exactly
comparison.
Yeah, exactly. And this time, we're not going to make it a positive thing because there are some issues happening in Ontario sporting leagues. The Minister of Sport, Lisa McLeod, basically came out and said that there wasn't going to be any body checking in the OHL, and it was a very strange situation because the Ontario Hockey League had not said anything about it. They had basically said that they were in negotiations with the province, and for anyone who's not aware, the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League had started about a month ago, and it has been an absolute gong show. There have been tons of positive cases. Teams have had to shut down. The only teams that seem to be playing normally are the maritime teams. So, it has just been a tire fire. I believe the WHL has started training camps. I don't think they've started playing their full season yet. So the OHL has been kind of taking a cautious approach with good reasons. But the reason why I want to bring this up is the Premier walked back those comments and said they're still in negotiation. Guys, I don't think we can argue that the Arrows and rugby is not a contact sport where COVID has definitely been taking an effect on it. So looking at how the province and the Minister of Sport in particular is handling the OHL and body checking, where do we see the Arrows playing? I mean, we're also seeing that the Toronto Raptors are selling their services essentially to the highest bidder. We've got the mayor of Kansas City tweeting in two different languages to try and entice them. The New Jersey, apparently the Prudential Center is looking to maybe have them come play. So are we saying that maybe the Arrows need to just kind of give up in Ontario and maybe look to the south, or is there negotiations that can happen? I mean, again, the OHL has history. Like it's for some towns, it's the be all and end all. I know here in Peterborough, without the Petes, it's going to be a very, very long summer for some people. So
yeah, especially since you play hockey in the winter, but yeah.
You know what? I'm so tired.
Yeah.
What do you guys honestly though? What do you guys think about this? Because this is big news about sport in Ontario.
It's big in Ontario. I mean, obviously, the I guess the literature that Lisa McLeod kind of tweeted to defend it did say all sports where contact is a principal component of the game. So weirdly, yeah. So I mean, in the actual article that she put out, highlighted things like wrestling and judo, which is obviously completely unavoidable. It's a combat sport. But I don't know, like, one, Doug Ford kind of coming back out and being like, no, we're going to continue to look at the OHL situation, gives a little bit of hope. One, I think, like, on one hand, it's like, this is like, it seems like a ridiculous ruling. Mainly because, like, I don't see how a body check is any more dangerous than, sitting on the bench next to the guys or
battling from the net or battling the corners, like,
or a fight. Like, I don't see how.
Yeah, my wife asked me that question. She's like, so do the refs have to start working out now so they can pull these kids apart when they're trying to fight? Like,
But this is the thing too, is like, obviously the OHL has been trying to crack down on fighting and they have, more strict rules on it, but they haven't banned it. So, I mean, body check, like, I don't see how it makes sense. And obviously it's a developmental league and it's a league that is a direct feeder to the NHL. And, they are technically all amateur, but they can make money through other means, like, signing bonuses and stuff if you're drafted, things like that.
A good portion of the population of the OHL, their players are also in high school. So I wonder if that has a big factor in it, because, like, that's been a problem in Quebec is the players have been getting COVID and then going to high school.
Yeah. Well,
and getting kids sick at their high school. Like,
yeah, that could be
16 to what? What's the age grade? 16 to 20?
Yeah, 16 to 20. I think
so. 16,
you
17,
have
18
overagers on your team,
and then 19-year-olds if they take a fifth year.
Yeah, you can have. Yeah,
so there are a lot of high school students that are taking part in the OHL.
There are. I have no idea, but it's like, I don't think, like, I don't know what's happening in the queue, like, that's making it like so many cases, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like taking a body checking is the answer to that question. Which, like, I feel like if that's the case, though, it's either, like, I feel like that's one of those things where it's either safe to play in whatever, like, rules that you have, or it's not safe to play. I wonder, though, like you said, it's like, I don't know how this is going to impact the Arrows at all, to be honest with you, because it is a hockey ruling, and also, like, we are ways away from the start of the MLR season. So obviously, and which is also going to be around the same time that the OHL season starts too. So, like, which is why I also think it's kind of insane, like, why that decision's being made so far in advance of the start of their season, because I think the OHL is supposed to be starting up in, like, February as well, because they're pushing it back even later. But it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
This is just building up a case against the Arrows playing home games.
I don't know. But, like, the other thing, though, too, is, like, maybe there's that, because it's like, obviously they let the NHL happen, And maybe there's a little bit of the fact that there was the bubble and stuff that made it different.
I think that's the big thing. People weren't coming in and out of the country. They weren't leaving the area. They weren't going into the community.
Honestly, I think though, ultimately, like, we're kind of getting at, like, I think it's kind of like, obviously it's nuts. You can't play a high performance, high level hockey without body checking. So that's not going to happen. I don't know what the result's going to be, but that's not going to happen. The OHL obviously also has to figure out the American team situation too, kind of in the reverse sense of what the MLR has to do and what the NBA has to do. And even like what the NHL has to do. I think the NHL is like, I think if you kind of look
at the NHL is the best
leagues,
suited for the situation.
Yeah, I think like if you kind of look at division. Like because I think you might be able to get away with the fact that it's like, yeah, like it's amateur and stuff technically for the OHL, or they classify it as amateur and stuff, even though, you know, we can kind of hem and haw on the definition of amateur in relation to the OHL is. But I think ultimately what you kind of look at is, it's like the thing that makes, like, if the Arrows were to have home games in Toronto, the thing that I'm kind of looking at is like, the Raptors are looking at contingency plans for playing in the States. And I think to me, a big part of why we're seeing like Kansas City or New Jersey, like openly kind of like, you know, the mayors of those cities kind of being like, come and play for us. Obviously you have big arenas that are empty, that have no events. And, you know, an NBA team, even if you can't have fans, could still be a little bit of cash coming into that arena, coming into that city. So I understand why those, like, that would be a desirable outcome for some of those places that are going to be sitting empty. But I think like, I think those are the kind of things that I'm kind of looking at that might have a little bit more, like, if the Raptors got to play south of the border, if the NHL is looking at that all Canadian division, that maybe those are going to be the things that will be the signs towards whether or not the Arrows also have to look at, you know, maybe a US base. But it's also, like I said, I think when we were talking about the start date being March 20th, that was the one thing that everyone said is the part of the advantage of having that start date, is you get to see what everybody else does first, and you get to see what works and stuff, right? And obviously you can't play rugby without tackling, or scrums or lineouts or rucks or any of that. So in the same way that you can't play hockey without body checking, or at least you can't play, or I shouldn't really say that, because obviously you can, because that's what the elite women's game is hockey without body checking.
But there's physical contact in that sport.
There's still body contact in women's hockey and stuff. But it's like, for the OHL being a developmental league, supposedly the best league in the country, the best junior league in the world, like, you're not playing without body checking. For sure. It's not happening. And so I don't really know how that impacts. I just find, like, I don't know, it's a political situation that might loosely impact sports and stuff. But yeah, like, I don't even know, because they haven't even really said it's going to impact other sports, because it's all been the OHL. And I don't know if that's just because we're in Canada and we're a hockey mad nation.
I think that's exactly what it is.
But like that, and that's what they're talking about. But I think, to me, it's like, I think that'll be the key indicators are going to be, like, to me, it's like, if the NHL starts and it's an all Canadian division, nobody crossing the border, or if the Raptors have to find a home somewhere south of the border too, I think those are kind of going to be a little bit more of the indications to what the Arrows may have to do. Or maybe, or who knows, like, I mean, it's still 6 months away, so there's a lot of time to figure things out. I would imagine there's some sort of contingency plan, but ultimately, I don't know. I don't think this body checking thing is going to actually hold up. I don't think that's going to end up happening. So there's obviously, the Q obviously has a ton of problems on their own, but it's probably one of the worst leagues as far as COVID goes in North America right now. So
Stu,
the Q's bad, but
so Stu, what do you think about this? Do you think that having a minister of sport coming out and saying body checking in one of the most popular sporting leagues can have an impact on how the Arrows are going to be running? And do you worry as much as I do about the Arrows ever playing a home game in the next season?
You worry.
I do, but I mean, okay, let's look at the evidence that's being stacked against them right now. The one, and the Blue Jays didn't get to play in Canada. That's a big one. Two, the Raptors
We're in a bubble.
Looks like they're not going to play in Canada. Okay, that's two major teams that are the only Canadian team in their league.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about
Honestly,
COVID cases are now currently the highest that they've been in Ontario, and we're about to go into summer where into winter where people are getting sicker because of flu season and cold season. So who knows what this is going to be like? And it sounds like our province and our provincial government do not have a grasp on how to handle it.
I think the one that makes me the most, I'll give Stu his moment in the sun here in a second, but like I think out of all that, the one that makes me the most nervous is just like, if you're looking at that, it's like the NHL apparently considering the all Canadian division.
Yeah,
is because it's like, okay, the NHL is willing to realign the league in order to not have to cross the border, basically. So that's kind of the one that makes me a little bit more, but I don't think the body checking thing is going to hold up anyways. Go ahead, Stu. We'll let you talk now.
Oh, now it's okay? All right.
Yeah, you're here now. So anyways, Dan, what's the next? Oh, sorry, Stu. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Dan, next topic.
Done?
Go ahead, Stu.
The worst part is that he's the host, so I can't mute him.
I know.
That's how he gets this. He's very smart.
I can mute you guys though.
Yeah, but do you need to? Anyway, so as being the biggest hockey fan amongst the three of us,
clearly,
I think obviously that the body checking thing is one of these reactions to COVID, because there's obviously if you're close to someone, then that's going to be one of the things, because even though with like wearing masks and everything like that, all the experts say, including Dr. Tam, that nothing's better than being physically distant and social distancing from everyone. So if you can reduce the legal means of contact, then that's what they're doing. Obviously, it's easy to say that, but then in practice, it's much more difficult. In terms of connecting to the arrows, it's been made abundantly clear by the federal government that they are not willing to open the border with the United States until their numbers go down, or in the worst case scenario, that Canada's numbers get so bad that it matches, but that's a long way to happen.
I mean, hey, we're trending that direction, I suppose.
So I think, especially with 5 months until the kickoff of the 2021 season, there's going to be a lot of changes. Yes, there's likely going to be a big spike over the winter, but as spring comes around, hopefully the numbers will start to go down. But Killebrew also has mentioned that there is a bubble plan in place, and that would probably mean that all teams would have to play in the United States.
Here's my worry. I want you to keep going, but
Dan, are you ever going to just let Stu talk? Man?
The bubble thing worries me. The bubble thing worries me because of the cost. Like, as a team in its infancy and also did not have a full season previously, can MLR shoulder that burden?
And I think with our current knowledge of how the league is being financed, I'm going to say no. But at the same time, I don't think anyone who's not involved in like the board of governors truly knows how the finances of the league is at the moment. So it's very difficult to say. I'd also imagine that a bubble league would be far shorter than the 16 weeks that 16 games, 16 weeks of games, 18-week regular season that's currently being marketed.
Proposed, yeah.
Yeah.
And don't forget as well, like the United States are allowing fans at games too. Like as we currently speaking right now, like they're allowing fans at games, right?
Yeah.
So you're not like from a business, like, I mean, we can debate whether that should be happening, but they're allowing it. Even like MLR, like if you really break that down even further, like like Utah, Atlanta, like they're playing preseason, or they're playing exhibition games with fans right now. Like we're already playing MLR games with fans in attendance. So the issue, I think, is crossing the border at this point is really what's going to happen. And that's, in my opinion, what I'll say. We should let Stu talk though, Dan.
So obviously, if that is the case, that a bubble league would be, I say, like the very upper limit of that would be all the other teams can play in their stadia, but Toronto would have to have like a second home south of the border. I would say if they were going to pick anywhere, they should pick Ohio, specifically in the metropolitan statistical area of Weirton and Steubenville, because in Jefferson County, Ohio, is the city of Toronto. And therefore, you don't have to change any of the marketing, any of the uniforms, anything like that. You'd be based in the East, in Toronto. And yeah, you have to work around these things.
Well, change the flag on the back to an Ohio flag.
There you go.
Oh no, well it should be for the players' country of residence, which in case would.
But it's not. It's a Canadian flag right now, so
exactly where they reside. Where for that season they reside in Canada, and then that's where all their postal address goes to. Therefore, they should.
I don't know. I think we're just ultimately at that kind of point. Like you said, it's like other leagues, they're letting fans in. Let's see how, like, to these exhibition games, see how these go with letting fans in and stuff. You get that advantage. So I'm not honestly to go back to like what originally started this conversation. I don't think the no body checking thing has any bearing on this.
Listen,
because
guys,
I also don't think it's going to actually happen. I think the OHL, when they start, are going to have body checking.
Listen, guys, I'm a meerkat. Every so often I pop out of my hole, I see something that terrifies me and I pop back down. And in this case, it's what is going to threaten me possibly being able to see a rugby match in the spring. So we'll see. Now there has been some news with the LA Giltinis that does have an effect on Rugby Canada. And Stu, why don't you tell us about Mark Carter and his relationship with Rugby Canada?
So Mark Carter has been hired by the Giltinis, and he is well known as an international rugby performance analyst. So he has 14 years as an elite performance analyst. He's played key roles for the Pro 14 champions Scarlets. He's worked with the Welsh Rugby Union as well, and for the last 3 years, he's been building the analysis department in Hong Kong and Asia. So Carter will be working in a dual role with the Rugby Canada's national team during the international windows. That basically means when test season comes around, including the ARC, he'll be working for Canada, and for the rest of the MLR season, he will be working in LA. I think this is a fantastic signing for LA. It may just be the bias of me in that he worked for the Welsh Rugby Union.
That's why we asked for your opinion on this matter.
Exactly. But I think having a good performance analyst can do a world of wonders for any team. And I know, obviously, a lot of us mainly have experience in like the amateur teams where it would just be, the coach or coaches, if you were fortunate enough to have more than one, pointing out what you didn't do well the previous weekend and how to improve it for the next game. But obviously, as you get into a more professional environment or even into a university team or things like that, these analysts can really improve your game and really improve your performance. And and as LA continue to expand their backroom staff, and that will have a key reflection on the team on the pitch. So it's, considering we've had months of radio silence from LA, the fact that we're now getting these great signings come through is going to make it's then maybe one of the teams to watch. Of course, from the start of this month, they'll be announcing their 30-man squad. So, we'll maybe be able to get to see some interesting names go with these interesting backroom signings. And, hopefully by the end of the month, whenever we get the full 30-man roster announced, we can put a idea together of like just where LA is going and what their goals are for the 2021 season.
Yeah, and I mean, knowing our luck, we record this on Sunday, November 1st. So I'm sure by the time this podcast is out on later this week, they will probably have announced a massive signing and potentially a massive Canadian-related signing. So this will be possibly out of date. I'm fully prepared for that risk. It is, though, it's great to see Mark Carter kind of coming in. Obviously, there is, as Stu kind of pointed out, his proud heritage there, the Welsh connection to Kingsley Jones, and, join Rugby Canada. But it's great to see Rugby Canada. Obviously, they have a very important relationship with the Toronto Arrows, but it's great to see Rugby Canada kind of building relationships up with the American MLR teams too. Obviously, the USA Eagles, they get to draw off of all the American MLR teams and stuff. Canada, we only have the Arrows, so it's nice to see, Rugby Canada finding ways to use resources south of the border and stuff. And I think, Jamie Cudmore maybe given some hope that a Vancouver MLR team could be on its way at some point in the future. But until that happens, right, the Toronto Arrows only have so many spots for their players, so many spots for their coaching staff, so many spots for the players, right? So it's like, it's great to see guys like Crosby Stewart, Nick Hildenbrand, Liam Murray heading to Houston, because it's like, hey man, if Houston's looking at their squad being like, we have needs that the guys on the Pacific Pride team can fulfill. And obviously the Toronto Arrows have a lot of really good props, so Murray and Hildenbrand, obviously Tyler Rowland is part of that prop core, so it's like maybe the Arrows don't necessarily need more props, but Houston does, or Toronto doesn't necessarily need another scrum. They have Ferguson, they have Higgins, so it's like they don't necessarily need a scrum half, but maybe Houston maybe is looking for a backup for Roos. So it's like you find those needs and find out where it fits in. And I think the same thing can go on, like, kind of on that coaching side. Obviously, Carter's not Canadian, but if he's working for Rugby Canada and stuff, like, it doesn't hurt to go kind of to not necessarily have to be an Arrow, right? Like the Toronto Arrows have a great performance analysis in Coco Lozada. So like that, the need for a performance analyst on the Toronto Arrows isn't necessarily there because they have a fantastic one already. So if you're kind of looking to have Rugby Canada bring in another performance analyst, and it's like, obviously the LA coaching staff is brand new, so they're like a clean slate down there. So if you can find a guy to come in, do a little work for Rugby Canada and help out an MLR team too, so he stays kind of, close to the Canadian national team, I think that works out marvelously. And, even like kind of going back even to the idea that Phil Mack was a player coach for Seattle, it's, there's only so many spots. The Arrows only can have so many coaches or so many players. So you got to send some guys. So hopefully if guys can find jobs south of the border and stuff too, that's great. Like I said, obviously Carter is from Wales, but it's but to be able to work for the Canadian national team and help out an MLR team as well, I think it's huge and stuff. And that's the second one that Kingsley Jones has brought over. Obviously Rob Howley is going to be working.
They're building a Western Wales contingent.
Exactly.
Head office of Rugby Canada.
I am fine with that.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Putting the British into British Columbia out there. But
listen, if they call the Vancouver MLR team the Dragons, I'm okay with that. I like what Jamie suggested with the Axemen, but
you mean the Squamish MLR team? We're putting the Squamish MLR team. We're going to call them Dragons. True.
Well, we have one more thing to talk about, and we're sticking with the Giltinis because they made quite the splash with their coaching staff. Again, we still don't know anything about their roster yet, but they signed another, a good addition, a British and Irish Lions addition, Derek.
Yeah, so they're bringing in obviously famed commentator as well. Does a lot of work for NBC and did sport games for the MLR last year. So Alex Corbacero is going to be the scrum coach, which is outstanding because there's a lot of teams in the league that it's a nice addition to the coaching staff, and and it's also a great thing to see MLR kind of diving into more of like the specialized coaching as well, having a specific scrum coach. And I mean, the Giltinis are building quite the staff here. I mean, we have Darren Coleman, who just won the Shoot Shield this weekend as well. You have guys that, like you said, Stu, you said Carter won the Pro 14 with Scarlets. Corbacero, obviously, a British and Irish Lions prop. So that's going to be a big help for them in the scrum. And he's done some consulting work for MLR teams in the past. But so nice to kind of see him like sort of lock down a role with the Giltinis. And it's one of those things. It's like, knowing this now, I'll be very interested to see again, who knows, like we got to see what the actual roster is, which I'm sure, like I said, probably is coming out sometime.
I'm watching it.
I know. I'm just like, I keep refreshing
right
my phone. I see like notifications. It's like, are they going to put it out? They did. Well, I mean, what did they say? They said starting from November 1st. So today is November 1st. So maybe not on November 1st.
So one a day for every day in November. So
yeah, I guess that's kind of what Seattle looks to be doing. The one a week, I guess. That's another thing we can go into. Brock Stoller re-signing as well. There's another
Stoller.
Yeah, Canadian signing. So the leading scorer for Major League Rugby in 2019 season, second all-time leading scorer behind Sam Windsor. So that's that's again brilliant to see. I know there's a lot of people that are still scratching their heads as to how he didn't get invited to the Canada camp.
I'm pretty sure you and I screamed about this a lot.
Yes, I was like, you know what? I was like, I still think it was like, yeah, we did, but we probably did. Yeah, we definitely did. I think it was like, maybe he doesn't make the team anyways, but to not have him at camp, I was still like, oh, yeah, like that's
with the way Taylor Paris has played over in France, I get why he was not included.
Yes, he's
and Andrew Koa, had a good World Cup, listen, let's not get into this, because if people want to hear about this, go back and
I don't even know what episode number it is. Go back and hear rants on it. But Stoller's obviously a great player. I think the interesting thing though is obviously in 2019, a big part of the reason why he was the leading scorer for the Seattle Seawolves, or sorry, the leading scorer for the Seawolves, but also for the league as a whole. He was like the go-to guy whenever Seattle needed a kick, be it a conversion or a penalty. And I think that kind of seemed to change a little bit in 2020, where Kees Lensing had him kind of splitting the duties with Ben Sema a little bit. Sema obviously was on an absolute tear when the season ended too. He was 12 for 12. The only player in the league, I believe the only player in the league that had over 10 attempts that was still perfect. I might have to double check that though. I could be wrong. But like, yeah, so in Stoller too, like Stoller was 11 for 12. So it was like he just missed the one. So it was like it's interesting though that they were kind of splitting that. So if that continued throughout the year, I don't think Stoller would have necessarily led the league in scoring again. Jason Robertson was leading when it shut down. But so I'm curious to see how they actually shape that out. Sema's kicking bombs for the Ohio Aviators. He's coming on the pitch for 3 seconds and just so I mean, he's got the boot, but Stoller has that boot too. Like Stoller can do the distance, man. Like he's been known to slot a penalty or so from like beyond half too. Like it's like Seattle, either way, man, Seattle's got 2 outstanding kickers. I mean, the Ohio Aviators are listing Sema as a Seawolf when they put out their roster, but nothing overly official from the Seawolves
for sure.
But
so the episode was called "No Spot is Safe."
No Spot is Safe
from June 26, 2019. So if everybody wants to hear a scream, it'd be that episode to watch.
Yeah, exactly. This is also pre-Stu, so you don't have the calming Welsh voice to calm everyone down. And like, you know what though, too, like should we talk about Stu, like the Welsh god is now the most capped man of all time.
Yes. God has now played 149 games, which takes him over Richie McCaw's limit of 148.
Also God.
And God of the Southern Hemisphere. And, it's incredible because this is a guy who every time you see him on the pitch, you can see him. Yeah, he's got a good couple of years left in him. We can definitely see, he's played some of the best rugby he's ever played, and he's very aware of the fact that there's more games behind him than in front of him. He has a contract with the Ospreys in Wales, and that is set to run out next summer. But that would also include a potential 4th Lions tour. And so Alwyn Jones currently has 9 Lions caps. So he's played in every game of the 2009, 2013, and 2017 Lions test tours. So those are the test matches themselves, not all of the preliminary matches. But if he could go and get 10 or even, I think it would be unbelievable if he got 12 consecutive Lions matches. I think that would be another record that would tumble. And okay, Wales haven't been playing their best over 2020, unfortunately.
It's probably because they look like Liverpool now.
I think it's more than they weren't playing that well even when they were still.
Actually, I don't even know anything about soccer. I don't even know if Liverpool's good. I just saw somebody who was like, "This looks like the Liverpool kit," and I went with the joke. But I don't even know if Liverpool's good or bad, to be honest.
Well, they're currently top of the Premier League, and they're the defending Premier League champions. I wish Wales were having that amount of success at the moment. But in all seriousness, it's a phenomenal achievement. I mean, we all know, even just from playing in like amateur leagues or even in school, is imagine playing in like the lock position for 149 games in international requirements. It's amazing, and congratulations to Alan Wynne Jones. Very deserved achievement. I'd like to see him push to get 160, and I'd like to see him push to get the 12 Lions caps, but obviously that's something for next year. And who's deciding on who gets those Lions caps? Why, it's his former Wales coach and former Lions coach, and the man who put him in as captain for the 2013 game-winning match for the tour is Warren Gatland. So, maybe there is a little bit of favoritism there, but
go with what you know, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I will say, for now, congratulations to Alan Wynne Jones, and hopefully we get to see a few more caps added to that tally.
Yeah. I can't wait until episode 395 or whatever it's going to be when we get to talk about Will Percillier breaking Alan Wynne Jones' record for most caps. And all the probably breaking it during the World Cup final too, just the ultimate storybook ending for Mr. Percillier's career. And
I would like to remind all of our international listeners that marijuana is legal in Canada, and because clearly Derek's smoking something at the moment.
By saying Will Percillier is a good rugby player?
Not a good rugby player.
No. There's good. Then there's what you're suggesting, which is God status.
It's playing a lot of games. You could lose a lot of games. It doesn't mean it's just... obviously, that's not what Alan Wynne Jones is. You just got to play a lot.
That you were talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, yes. The World. Oh, it was more about the World Cup final thing. Well, yeah. Obviously, 2031, right? That's what we're all aiming for here.
Boy. All right, gentlemen. We're going to finish off
Canada USA final at the North American World Cup.
Well, we're going to finish off there because I think if Derek says anything else, his head might explode. If you guys are more interested in listening to more of our podcast episodes or getting in contact with us, or you just want to have a chat about some of the crazy things we say on this show, you can reach us at Rouge Rugby on Twitter, on Instagram, and on Facebook. We post our videos, our links to our podcast, and much more. Gentlemen, hopefully in a few weeks we will get a roster from the Giltinis that we can talk about, and maybe there'll be some Canadian faces that we can have a little bit of a chat about.
For the record, I think the most ridiculous part of the thing that I said is that if we somehow get to 395 episodes, I feel like I feel like I'll be happy, but no matter how good Canada's doing, and that'll be the most ridiculous person. So if you are listening for that long, thank you in advance.